Today, we've got a very exciting show. We're going to be talking with Fred Cary, who's the CEO of IdeaPros, IdeaPros.com. He's a wealth of entrepreneurial knowledge. You know that we deal in the entrepreneurial world so often. Well, so does he. He has started over 40 companies, sold them, been pieces of them. He's got 570,000 people that follow him on Instagram in all phases of entrepreneurship, of leadership, of perseverance, of getting started. So today, I'd like to welcome Fred. And Fred, thanks for being on our show. We're very excited.
Hey, sounds exciting. Happy to be here.
Thank you. So thanks for having us. Thanks for being on, I should say. So let's talk about entrepreneurship. You are an entrepreneurship consulting maven. You know what you're doing. You've been talking to them for a million years. You're like me. You know, that's what you do. You talk the language, you walk the walk, and so forth, which means you're seeing people at different phases. And I want to talk about them too, because you and I talked about offline about those phases and what that means and how you yourself have gone through multiple phases of your own business, because that's what we do. I run a financial institution, two companies, and then you go through lots of phases. So let's talk for a moment, Fred, about the phases and what's needed here at the entrepreneur startup business. A little background on Fred, that he's not just a consultant. He's a former attorney. Don't hold that against him. He's used to working in adversarial situations. He's got an MBA from England, from Liverpool, which don't hold that against him if you're not a soccer fan. But he's done a job working in a niche that is so needed, because entrepreneurs, they bring skills to the table. And what we don't understand as entrepreneurs, and I'm one of them, is I don't have 100% skills of everything I do. But ego-wise, entrepreneurs think they do. And that's part of their downfall and weakness is I'm great with marketing and sales, but I'm crappy with cash. I'm great with cash management and raising money, but I can't sell a product off the shelf to save my life. That's what happens with entrepreneurs. And, you know, we tell people hire to your weakness. Don't hire to your strength. You handle your strength and hire to your weakness. So let's go back to what's going on, Fred, with the entrepreneurial world, and tell us, how does somebody become an entrepreneur? What's your experience been on that?
Yeah. And by the way, besides getting those degrees, I started 10 companies from the ground up and took a couple of them public and had two others acquired by public companies. So I feel the thrill and the pain of entrepreneurship over and over again. And we have 400 companies under our belt now that I own 30% of. So I have 400 screaming little children every day wanting daddy to fix all their issues. So the reason that we have so many screaming little children is entrepreneurship is really, really hard. And it doesn't happen the way we expect it to happen. The reason we become entrepreneurs, a lot of us, is because we're not happy in the corporate world. We might be doing really, really well. We might be quite successful, upper management, but we're waking up in the morning and dreading our lives. And entrepreneurship is the opportunity to control your life and to bet on yourself and to see your future come to fruition because of your own activities, not the outside activities that are out of your control.
So now I'm an entrepreneur. I made a decision. Maybe you're right. Maybe I'm a corporate executive, and that's not the role for me. Maybe you're like me, and you come from a family of entrepreneurs, and you make a lousy employee. Let's be honest. There are a bunch of entrepreneurs that make lousy employees, and I'd be in that list category there. So if I wasn't doing this, I'd just be doing another kind of business I owned. And if I wasn't doing that, and this is the third company, I've sold two already, and now I'm in my third one, and I'm sure one day I'll be doing that. Style. You are an expert at entrepreneurial style and entrepreneurial leadership. What styles are required and leadership qualities are required to become an entrepreneur, a successful entrepreneur? Because if you're not a successful entrepreneur, don't be an entrepreneur. I mean, that's our goal, to be successful.
Ironically, entrepreneurs and leaders are quite different from each other. So the entrepreneurial journey requires you to not be a leader in the beginning, and then mandates that you have to become a leader as your company grows, or you're never going to make it to where you want to be. But fundamentally, the most critical element of being a successful entrepreneur is perseverance, because things are never going to work out the way you want them to work out. And when you look at some of the most successful companies out there, you can pick almost any example. If you go and look historically on how that company started, you'll see that there were a million heartaches. You don't have to look much further than Elon Musk and go back to 2008 when it was getting near the end of the year, and he had Tesla and SpaceX, and both of those companies were going to go into bankruptcy, and he took the last $90 million he had and threw half into each company and ended up having to sleep on couches of his friends in their apartments because he didn't even have enough money for rent. Or companies like Airbnb that spent 3 years trying to raise $150,000. If you had it back then, you could have owned 10% of Airbnb for 150 grand. The journey is grueling. The mistakes are rampant, and the dead ends are almost daily. And so, to be almost a chameleon and very, very resilient, and using failure as an opportunity to find a successful route, those are the critical elements you have to have to enter this playing field. It's almost gladiator-like. You don't have the armaments that you're going to have in corporate America. And you have to kill or be killed.
Well, that word perseverance is such an important word. And in the book that I wrote called Driven, I highlighted that word because for me, I have a very good friend of mine, Fred, that has built up several companies, kind of not as the CEO, behind the CEO. And it seems that his life was a straight line. It just went up. No matter what he touched, he had the Midas touch. Everything was golden. He's worth $500 million today. Or more, maybe 700 million, just a golden touch. And then for myself, who people would say, well, you're a fairly successful entrepreneur, what you do. I feel like my life is anything but straight. I feel like I got this, I got that. I look like that old game that you, whatever it was, the sketching game that you sketch, that you used to shake and draw lines with it. If you held the two lines, turn the two knobs together, you got a weird thing. That's been my life. But that's the life really of the entrepreneur, isn't it? I'm more typical.
Yeah. First of all, I hate your friend because not any of us seem to have that straight line effect. And the Etch-a-Sketch you're describing is exactly what you need to be prepared for with entrepreneurship. The reality is, and you alluded to it, describing your own past, a lot of us become entrepreneurs early in life because we don't think anybody will have us. And then the others of us that become entrepreneurs later in life is because we wake up and we finally realize that our life is not rewarding. We're making a lot of money. We have a great 401k plan, medical coverage. We have matching contributions from our employer, and we have these kind of golden parachutes in our horizon, but our life is not fulfilling. So I think that in either case, whether you're that kind of rebel from the very beginning or you're kind of this distraught, successful person, it's a brand new world out there, the world of entrepreneurship. Even if you're going to start a small business on your own that you don't think of it as very entrepreneurial, there are things that you have to think about all the time to make yourself different and relevant and compelling and the best of what it is that you do, regardless of what you're doing.
Well, it's funny you bring that up and these changes in our lives. So many people think of Mark Zuckerberg as the consummate entrepreneur. And I talk to people all the time, like you do, and you talk to more people than I do. And they think, well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to come up with this innovative idea. We could talk about innovation here in a second, because the Silicon Valley world, which is right down the street from me, is all about innovation. And most of us can't understand what they're doing because we're not the engineering type of person. But they think of themselves and they look at Mark Zuckerberg. Here's a kid that started in college, something that turned into, a $1 trillion entity today. And he's a multi-billionaire and successful. And you can argue whether you hate him or love him, or he's the king. He is the head of the evil empire. I'm not sure the way some people describe him. But so many people look at him as the role model of entrepreneurship. Started on a whim, turned into a multi-billion-dollar company. So they walk into entrepreneurship with this artificial dream, artificial reality, that I'm going to start something in about 4 years from now. I'm going to take it public. In about 7 years from now, I'm going to wind out of it. And I will end up with a couple of $1 billion in my pocket, like all these 25-year-olds in Silicon Valley. And and then the reality comes in. So what's wrong with that thinking?
Well, first of all, if you want to do that, see me. But secondly, what's wrong with that thinking is that thinking doesn't have all the facts. Look at Mark Zuckerberg. If you look at the facts, he started with a shitty idea. He didn't really start with Facebook. It was just a local directory for Harvard University, student directory that was more personalized, and then expanded out to additional universities. And they evolved their idea. And that's the thing about entrepreneurship. And if you look at Facebook as an example, it's something that they allowed it to flow wherever it was going to go. They went from, you had to have a university email address to join, to opening it up to the rest of the world. And it took on a life of its own. However, for 7 years, Facebook did not have a revenue model. Not that they didn't have revenue. They didn't even have a model of how they were going to get revenue. 7 years. So when you look at those stories and you think about them as these successful things that just happenstance went along, you can see that there's a journey there that requires, again, perseverance, resilience, flexibility, the ability to pivot, the ability to listen to your audience and build according to what they want. So many people decide they want to become entrepreneurs and they want to build what they want. That's like number one fatal flaw in entrepreneurship. Don't build what you want. Build what the audience of your potential customers is telling you that they need. And that's what happened with Facebook. They built what they wanted, and then they expanded out based on what the audience said that they really wanted.
You know, we're talking with Fred Cary of IdeaPros at IdeaPros.com. And we're talking about entrepreneurship because we've got so many listeners here that own companies. And I have so many clients who are owners of companies or own companies. And we're having this conversation. We just talked about the word innovation. Another one was perseverance earlier. But innovation, some of us in the word of innovation, we think of technology. And you and I know, and this is the mistake a lot of people make, that the word innovation is much broader than a world of technology. It could be a brand new soda. It could be a sandwich. It could be a snack. That's the food world. It could be the end of glasses, some amazing bifocal that. Tell me, how important is this innovation? Because I see, I just met with the people who started Snapple that ended up taking the company back from the people they sold it to. No big deal, but boy, they were marketing geniuses because flavored drinks was not so innovative, but their method of marketing was. So innovation means different things to different people, Fred.
Yeah, the way I think of innovation, I think of it in at least two ways. Innovation in the very beginning, like when you're starting out, how are you going to do things differently to go make an impact in the marketplace? And then innovation after you've started becoming successful. And let me explain both of them. I'll give you an example of innovation in the beginning. And to your point, innovation can be with almost any kind of business. Let's look at something that's mundane, that everybody does the same, that there's probably 20 of them within 2 miles of you, or in some cases 2 blocks of you. Dentistry. Okay, so you want to be a dentist, you want to open up a shop, you're going into a location where there are 10 other competitors. What does innovation mean to somebody who wants to do that? Innovation starts with understanding the problems. And for example, dentistry, what's the problem? People hate dentists. People hate the pain, they hate the noise, they hate the experience, they hate being numb when they leave, and they never go regularly enough. My dentist asked me last time, "Hey Fred, when's the last time you flossed?" And I said, "Don't you remember? You were there." And so innovation in dentistry could be addressing all those horrible points and instead saying, "Hey, guess what? $99 a month. I'm going to guarantee that you never have a cavity again for the rest of your life. You're going to come in religiously. You're going to have once a month exam. We're going to make sure we do your cleaning once a month instead of once every quarter. We're going to look for the beginning of any type of cavity or any issue with your teeth, and we're going to address it before it really happens. And now you're the only dentist in town that's getting a monthly fee, that you have happy customers and patients that don't have any cavities, and you've built a brand new innovative model to address dentistry." So that's one way you can do it. The other way is, while you're growing your business and it's becoming successful, innovation means in trying to make yourself obsolete. Because if you're not doing it, your competitors are doing it, right? And once you start getting momentum and traction, if you're going to come in to that competitive environment, you're going to try to find a better way to do what that competitor is doing. And if you're that competitor, you need to think that way. How do I make myself obsolete? What can I create now? What can I make different from what I'm doing now to make me even more successful and to spread the difference between me and my competitors? So I look at it in both of those ways.
So how would you look at the biggest challenges to the innovation?
Structure is the biggest challenge to innovation. And you can see that from some of the biggest companies in the world. They have such an enormous structure and hierarchy and methodologies of doing things that innovation doesn't happen well in-house. And that's why if you're a small business that's growing, that's potentially attractive to larger organizations, your exit may very well be an acquisition. For big companies, it's much higher to much easier to buy innovation than to have it build from within.
Okay, and then creative thinking. Entrepreneurs are very creative. We're scrappy people in general, and we think out of the box. And sometimes we think too far ahead, and then the market's got to catch up to us, which we've got to stay in business long enough for the market to catch up to us. But most times we just see things differently, and I don't know why that is. I just came back from 3 weeks in Europe, and I looked at different things and water, and I thought, well, why aren't they doing it this way? Why don't they do it that way? Why don't they do drinks that way? Look what they can learn from the United States. Look what we can learn from them. We just think differently. But there are lessons to be learned on innovation and creative thinking. How creative do successful entrepreneurs, really need to be?
It's a continuing process. Creativity is a continuing process. Even with the most mundane of things like operations. How can I make my operations more automated? How can I reduce my overhead? How can I provide more, spending less? The creativity runs in every element of growing any type of business. And again, you need to have it so you don't become obsolete. And if you're not creating all the time, if you're not finding better and better ways of doing things, then you're going to have shrinking margins. You're going to have an opportunity to become completely obsolete, and you will have competitors that will eat your lunch.
One of the things I found in my world, and Fred, I bet you've experienced this too, is balancing of life. And I've said to all entrepreneurs, and I'd love your opinion on this, because you have to consult people on how to have their life in balance. And I've said before that my life is, because I've been asked that question too, I've said my life has been out of balance every day of my life. If I want to be a great entrepreneur, I'm going to make a lousy husband and a lousy father that day, at least at work. If I'm going to be a great husband and dad, I'm not going to be very effective at what I do for a living. How do you get these in balance? Am I wrong that they can't really ever be in balance?
Yes, I hate saying that to a host, but yes, you're wrong, and I'll tell you why you're wrong. I believe that the best companies in the world are companies that have a purpose attached to them. In fact, you can even look at multinational organizations that have a wide variety of products, and then look at like Unilever. There's a subset of their products that are kind of cause-driven. We're creating better products, greener, healthier, better for the environment. That subset of their products represents something like 75% of their profits, even though it's maybe a 20% of what they do. And so by aligning yourself with a greater purpose, a greater cause, you can have greater profits, greater loyalty from your customers, greater loyalty from your employees and staff. And it really does start at home. I argue that you can't be a great leader unless you're a really good person, and being a really good person starts at home. So, I don't beat my dog. I make sure my kids are fed and my wife's happy. And that carries out into my community, how I treat my neighbors, how I treat the general community. Do I do volunteer? Do I try to give back? And that type of thinking, that type of philosophy, when it goes to the organizational level, you end up doing much better. But I'm guilty of the same thing that you alluded to. I was, until about 4 months ago, 7 days a week, 14 hours a day, never quitting. My employees would say, "Hey, it's Friday," and I would say, "Yeah, only 2 more work days to Monday." And so you can get burnt out in that life. And so I find that if you're going to take time out for your family, for yourself, for your hobbies, for example, and really be passionate about those things, you'll have that recharge necessary to make sure that when you're at work, you're alert, you're happy, you're not worrying about your family because you took care of them. And when you're with your family, you're not worrying about your work because you took care of that as well. There is this kind of work-life balance. I hate that phrase. It's more like to me, it's a life balance. If you're doing what you want to do, what you think you're meant to do, what you feel purpose-driven about, then you can wake up every morning with a smile, and the balance between all those elements of your life intertwine in a seamless way.
So let's talk about, Fred, as we begin to wrap the show up a little bit here. And we'll be talking about Fred Cary, who's just got a great company that deals with entrepreneurs, and that's our market as well at Prosperity Financial Group. And reach out to me, please, with a phone call or an email. The third phase of an entrepreneur's life, the phase when I've got something successful, but I'm also getting a little bit older now, and I've got to think about the next phase, because there is a next phase in your life. Whether nature handles it for you or you handle it in front of nature, there's going to be a next phase in your life. And you're either going to sell the company, you're going to pass it along, you're going to create this amazing legacy here, or you're not. You're going to do something else. So give me the thought process there, and what people should be thinking as they enter the 60-plus-year-old phase of their life.
Yeah, look, we all need exits. Again, as you said, voluntarily or not, it's coming, and it's best to dictate what it's going to be. Handing things down generationally, the chance of that being successful is, at least the data I've seen, is not the greatest. So if that's your plan, you have to have family involved, intimately involved in whatever you're doing, well before you get to that phase, so they really understand and it becomes seamless. But the other element of that is look at the industry that you're in. And by the way, it can be quote unquote boring industry like the pallet business I was talking about before. They got acquired by private equity. Look at the business that you're in. Look at the private equity firms that are in there acquiring. And you can look at almost any business now, and there are private equity firms acquiring fashion, beverages, food, pallets, like in our example, technology. That can be all over the place. Find private equity firms that are making a dent into the space that you're in and start repositioning your company so it hits their sweet spot. And it's not a very hard thing to do, to be able to go and check these private equity firms out, see what their mantra is, see how they what they're looking for in acquisitions, and then become part of that acquisition process. It's not that hard to position yourself in the right way. I help with that as well, to kind of reposition so you become very attractive to the companies out there with big bankrolls.
And then we talk to people about building a legacy, because now you've acquired some wealth, and maybe it's some serious wealth under here. Do you help people, or should people, with the thought process of now, what's the purpose of making money? Is it just to give it to my kids one day? That's my legacy? Is I left my kids money because no one left me any? Is the legacy I want to create a charity that does something amazing? Is a legacy that I want to put my name on a building because that's important to see my name for the next 2 or 3 generations? I heard this. There's this horrible, I'm going to call it a Facebook reel that's going around by a number of people about life. And it says, all these things that you've worked hard for, we just want you to know that in 2 generations, nobody's going to remember a thing about you because they'll all be dead, which is really depressing. It's really, but so how do you help people? How do you get the mindset of that? Okay, legacies can be defined in very personal ways. Let's think like that. What's the mindset there, Fred?
Yeah, I would say generally we spend the first half of our careers building our CV, and the second half of our careers building our legacy, writing our eulogy, if you will. And I think it's an important transition that we all need to go through to make the life that you've lived a life that's worthwhile. And making your life worthwhile is the biggest element of that is not how much money you have in your bank account, but it's really what you're doing with the wealth that you've accumulated, what you've acquired. How many people are you enabling to have better lives? How many different companies are you shifting the thinking of to make them more responsible corporate citizens? What is it that you're doing that the example of your actions are things that people are going to talk about even after you're gone? If you don't have that, you're going to die a miserable old bastard. If you do have that, people are going to be talking about the legacy you're leaving behind while you're still alive, to be able to enjoy the fruits of your good efforts. So I think it's critically important as a human being that we all recognize that we're all part of one tribe, and that if we've been fortunate enough to be in the top element of that, that we should be wise enough to be able to give back to help others get up there.
Fred, how does somebody reach you? They're entrepreneurial. They've got this feeling. They want to bring you in the early phase and want to bring you in a later phase, whatever it is. How does somebody reach you with that wealth of knowledge that they can share?
Yeah. So the first thing that people can do to reach me, if you really have something that is big you want me to help you with, is just email me, fred@ideapros.com, and that will get a response from me, and I'll either be able to help you or I'll be able to direct you the right way. Otherwise, IdeaPros.com. If you go to IdeaPros.com, you'll see one of the first things we offer is a free membership. You go on there, we give you all sorts of good data points every single week. We have free workshops you can attend and really help you build out as a person and as a company. And then finally, if you go to Instagram at official Fred Cary, Cary, I have about 500,000 followers on there now, that on a daily basis I'm giving personal advice, whether it's on personal development, entrepreneurship, doing the right thing all the time, becoming a better leader, becoming a better husband or wife, father, daughter, whatever it is. I'm doing something that I think you'll find impactful every day. Take 1 minute of each day and come visit.
Great. All right. Well, Fred, this has been enlightening. Great. Entrepreneurs, I hope you got something out of it, whether the entrepreneur spirit is alive and well, or it's just burgeoning and a tulip bowl waiting for spring, whatever that is. Or you're at the phase of your life that says, I finally did it. I've arrived. Maybe I didn't make as much money as I thought, but I've got this great stash of cash and I need to do something really positive. Fred is the person that can help you. We can help you. Prosperity Financial Group. Don't hesitate to reach out to either one of us. We'd love to be in your corner. Thanks so much, Fred.
Thanks for having me here.
Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you soon. So we just finished up a great 25-minute show with Fred Cary of IdeaPros, and we talked about perseverance and entrepreneurship. And this is the fourth company I've started in my life, third, fourth, and fifth companies I've started in my life. He's been in a 40 world, so he's got more than me with, hundreds of thousands, 500,000 plus followers on Instagram, giving advice out every day. It's very exciting. So if you've got an entrepreneurial background, a hint of it, a desire, a burn inside of you that you know someone that is an entrepreneur, or you yourself want to be an entrepreneur, or you want to educate your children to become entrepreneurs, this is a show that I think you will have loved and will love and listen to over and over.